Curiosity stirred within him, but there was also something deeper, something more profound. Perhaps it was the way the boy's eyes shone with hope, or the way his simple request had cracked through the millionaire's self-imposed armor. Whatever it was, Mr. Richardson couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was important. Without thinking, he began to follow the boy. He didn't know where he was going, but something inside him urged him to keep walking, to keep observing. He followed at a distance, through busy streets and dark alleyways, until they reached a dilapidated building at the end of an alley. The boy walked up the creaky steps without a glance back. Mr. Richardson paused. It dawned on him. This boy wasn't asking just for food. He was asking to be seen, to be acknowledged. And in that brief exchange, Mr. Richardson had done just that.
Imagine walking down the street, having just enjoyed a luxury meal, when a young boy asks for your leftovers. Sounds shocking, right?
But what happens next will completely change the way you see kindness, poverty, and human connection. Stay tuned, because this is a story about more than just food. It's about a moment that will change two lives forever. Mr. Richardson's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had just indulged in a lavish three-course meal, tasting delicacies that most people would never even dream of trying. And yet, here was this child, barely a decade old, standing before him with nothing but a small, empty bag, asking for the remnants of what Mr. Richardson had barely touched. The millionaire glanced down at the boy's worn clothes, clothes that looked as though they had been patched up too many times to count. His shoes were ragged, soles barely hanging on. It struck Mr. Richardson deeply. He was accustomed to people asking for money, for donations, or help in ways that were expected of someone of his stature. But this was different. The boy wasn't asking for money or new clothes. He was asking for the scraps of a meal, something discarded by someone who had no use for it. Mr. Richardson shifted uneasily, trying to make sense of what was happening. What was it that made this boy, this child, think that the leftovers from a rich man's lunch would be a solution to his hunger? He could offer him so much more, but somehow the simplicity of the request felt more meaningful than anything he could imagine giving. The child's quiet, unwavering gaze tugged at Mr. Richardson's conscience, urging him to consider the real cost of a world where some had everything and others had so little. As Mr. Richardson stepped into the restaurant, the cool, air-conditioned air hit him, and the noise of the city seemed to fade away. The opulent surroundings, the polished marble floors, and the rich smell of freshly prepared gourmet meals, all of it felt so far removed from the rough streets the boy had just come from. The contrast was jarring, and for the first time in a long while, it left him feeling uncomfortable. The boy, still standing just inside the door, shifted uneasily from foot to foot. His wide eyes scanned the interior of the upscale restaurant, unsure of whether he was allowed to be there. Mr. Richardson could see his hesitation, but also the hope lingering in the boy's gaze. It was as if he didn't even expect much, just a small act of kindness. Mr. Richardson's mind shifted once more. This wasn't about food anymore. It was about dignity, about showing this child that he mattered, that his life wasn't invisible. "Can I pack the leftover food for the boy?" Mr. Richardson repeated, his voice softer now, more thoughtful. The waiter looked a bit taken aback by the unusual request, but nodded without question. "Of course, sir," he said, his voice polite but tinged with confusion. Mr. Richardson watched as the waiter gathered up the remnants of his meal, carefully packing them into a container. Each step, each motion, felt heavy with the realization that he was about to do something simple yet profoundly meaningful. He turned, the boy still lingering behind him, awaiting the smallest shred of hope. The boy's face lit up with pure joy the moment he saw the bag in Mr. Richardson's hands. It was a simple thing, leftovers from a meal that cost more than what the boy would likely see in months. But to him, it was everything. His eyes widened in disbelief, and for a brief second, Mr. Richardson saw what true gratitude looked like. The boy hadn't expected a grand meal or anything extravagant. All he had hoped for was a piece of what someone else didn't need, and that was exactly what Mr. Richardson had given him. As the boy's trembling hands grasped the bag, his small voice whispered, "Thank you, sir." His words were soft, but they carried a weight far greater than the meal itself. The boy turned to leave, but something in him seemed to hesitate, as if he had more to say. "God bless you," he added, looking back over his shoulder with a smile that melted something cold in Mr. Richardson's chest. The millionaire watched as the boy disappeared into the crowd, and in that moment, something profound shifted within him. He had spent years thinking that the only way to make a difference was through wealth or large gestures, but this moment, this simple exchange, taught him something he had forgotten, that kindness, no matter how small, could change lives. The boy had needed nothing more than the tiniest spark of generosity, and it had made all the difference. Mr. Richardson stood frozen at the edge of the restaurant, the noise of the city now muted in his ears. His mind couldn't stop racing. Who was this boy? What kind of life did he lead, to be standing on a busy street, asking for scraps from a stranger? As the boy disappeared into the crowd, Mr. Richardson felt a pull in his chest, something unexplainable, an urge to understand more. The following morning, Mr. Richardson returned to the alleyway, the weight of his decision still lingering on his mind. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about the boy, his simple request, and the profound impact it had left on him. He knew he couldn't just walk away, as though this encounter was nothing more than a fleeting moment. The boy had shown him something important, something about kindness, humility, and the human connection that Mr. Richardson had forgotten amidst his wealth and success. When he arrived, the boy was sitting on the same worn-down steps, eating the leftovers Mr. Richardson had given him the day before. His eyes lit up as he noticed the millionaire standing there, but this time there was no desperation in his gaze, just a quiet sense of contentment. It struck Mr. Richardson how, in that moment, the boy had found something to hold on to, something that made him feel valued, even if just for a moment. "Hey," Mr. Richardson said, his voice steady but softer than before. "How would you like a job?" The boy looked up, confusion flashing in his eyes. "A job? I own a company," Mr. Richardson continued, his tone now full of encouragement. "I could use some help, and I think you have a lot more potential than you realize." The boy's face broke into a radiant smile, the kind that illuminated the entire alley. Mr. Richardson smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through him, knowing that this was just the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. If this story touched your heart and made you think about the power of small acts of kindness, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more inspiring stories that can change your perspective on life, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Drop a comment below and let me know. How would you have responded in Mr. Richardson's shoes? Let's start a conversation and keep spreading positivity. See you in the next one.